Hard West is one of those games I had never heard of, until I saw people talking about the recently released Hard West 2. I kept reading statements like the sequel to a hidden gem and the sequel to the best game you've never heard of. And yeah, I'd never heard of it, so naturally it was time for me to do some hearing. When it comes to Ultrawide, the game both supports it and it doesn't. What I mean by that is that the support is only partial. If you're using 21:9, you are in luck and everything will work perfectly. If you want to go to 32:9, you're out of luck. I was also not able to find a fix, so 21:9 is the widest the game can go. With that out of the way, let's dive deeper into the actual review. Hard West is a turn-based tactical game similar to XCOM. The story takes place in the Wild West and features supernatural elements. The last part really appealed to me. The gameplay is divided in two sections, the map exploration and the battles. During the first one, you mostly run around the map exploring and progressing through the story. At specific moments, our protagonists get in trouble and we have to guide them through the upcoming battle. This division works really well and ensures that the player is never bored. The story is divided in chapters. Each chapter is like its own mini campaign, which comes with its own set of pros and cons. The pros are that the game's pacing is designed really well. Finishing a chapter took me between 2 and 4 hours on average and felt like the perfect amount of time. The problem is that there is no saving in between. You have to commit to it. One time the game soft locked right at the end of a chapter. No matter what I did, the script would not play out and my characters were stuck in this battle sequence which would just not start. I had no choice but to restart the whole thing and replay everything again, and by that I mean the whole chapter. As you can imagine, this made me very unhappy, but at least the game worked fine the second time around, so all was good. And speaking of the story, which I haven't really mentioned that much, but now I'm gonna do it, it is surprisingly good. The supernatural elements make it all the more exciting. Without spoiling anything, I can tell you that we have a classic deal with the devil kind of story, and it's excellent. There is relatively little voice acting outside of the awesome narration, so you will have to do some reading, but it's held to a minimum and very manageable. As someone who gets annoyed when presented with walls of text in games, I can give this one my seal of approval. It was not even close to annoying me. One thing I liked about the story was that even as you complete the main one, you then unlock chapters in which you get to control some of the game's villains and see how they became who they were later on. To top that off, the DLC gives you a completely new spin-off story which even gives you new mechanics to work with. It's good stuff. When it comes to gameplay, it suffers from some very strange faults, which could have been easily resolved had the developer just, I don't know, playtested this more. First of all, the character progression is not taken over between different chapters. This is really weird because you upgrade them in various ways, and by them I mean the characters, with various items, talent cards, and story actions, only to lose all of that and have to start over as soon as the next chapter begins. That's bad game design because it kills the whole RPG vibe, which I personally love a lot. There are few things which are as disappointing as gearing your characters up, making them really awesome and strong, and then realizing at the beginning of the next chapter that you have to do it all again from the start. One of the strangest things I encountered during the combat sections was the fact that all enemies have an Overwatch function activated while you are doing your turns. But our characters cannot do that. And I mean, not at all. This means that if you run up to an enemy, just to explain for those of you who haven't played XCOM for example, that enemy will shoot you as soon as you get close, even though it's still your turn. Basically, if you get within their line of sight at a certain distance, close enough, they'll take a shot. That's called Overwatch. If they run up to your characters when it's their turn, no matter how close, our team just doesn't react and lets the enemy shoot them from point blank instead. It's just such a weird design choice and one that has annoyed me quite a lot. Another unique thing is the game's luck system. In short, every character has a certain amount of luck. You shoot an enemy or an enemy shoots at you, the odds of hitting are displayed in a percent number and that amount is first subtracted from your luck. If your luck reaches 0, you take a hit and then regain some of it back. If your luck is higher than 0, it's a miss. At first I assumed that this system would be annoying, but really it wasn't, and I actually began understanding and utilizing it quite well. If you have a character with a very high amount of luck, you can push more aggressively because you know that it will likely take a lot of shots for that character to take damage because the luck will be subtracted with each enemy turn until it zeros and then you start taking damage, which is really good. This can lead to some ballsy and fun gameplay situations. If you are too confident, it can also kill your character. So this is something to consider. The problem with this system is that it essentially forces the player's hand. You will find different weapons and cards which will grant you skills, after a fight or during the exploration section. The problem here is that the player is incentivized to take the guns with the most damage, or alternatively those that get to shoot multiple times per turn. Since most card skills cost luck to activate, we will find ourselves picking and using those that are either passive, so that it doesn't cost anything to have them active at all times, or active ones which only have some seriously major impact on the battlefield. This means that experimentation is discouraged, since even the simpler skills actually cost quite a bit of luck, and they leave your character vulnerable to getting shot, because if you use your luck for a skill, now your character doesn't have luck and next shot at him is gonna do damage. And that includes multiple shots if he's unlucky. I love the injury system the game has as well. At different times your characters may get injured. This means that they now have a debuff for a while, usually 2 combat encounters. These debuffs can be a real pain in the ass, since some of them are quite substantial and in some cases literally crippling. Literally, because your character might have a debuff for being crippled. The thing is, once you let them walk it off, or in other words, once you've passed these 2 combat sections, these injuries will heal and be replaced by scars, which now almost always offer a significant permanent buff without any drawbacks. Sometimes there are drawbacks, but they're minimal in comparison to the actual buff. I also love the descriptions of the scars, things like, your finger fell off, but it was only in the way anyway, so you're better without it now. Something else that I can't help but complain about are the 2D cutscenes, which just kinda look bad to me. They honestly look like something that was done in an afternoon by a person with limited talent. Luckily, the awesomely voiced narration was there and more or less saved it all. I've read that the game was unstable and prone to crashing a lot when it came out. A lot of people on Steam complain about that. With the exception of that one soft lock that I mentioned earlier, I've had no crashes whatsoever, so perhaps this was fixed? Either that or I was just crazy lucky, but honestly I doubt it. Ultimately, the first Hard West game was an enjoyable experience. It can be found for around €20 on both Steam and GOG. As always, I strongly recommend you get it DRM free from GOG.com, but it's your call. Considering the game's age, it's likely that the price will soon drop significantly, so perhaps waiting is in order. But even if you do pay the full $20, I'm confident that the game is worth it. While it does feel similar to XCOM, it is at the same time quite different in many ways, making it an enjoyable experience for both fans of the genre and newcomers. With that having been said, I would like to thank you for watching Game Filter. I hope this review was informative and hope to see you on the next one. Until then, have a great day. This is Nino signing out.